I mean, I call it lip gloss, but if you're going to shame me on my strawberry flavored Nivea lip gloss, then yes.
Harry, I have to applaud you, man. You've really done awesome job.
Thank you. I was on Fox Digital on this Bud Light Gate, I guess you want to call it. I wasn't a huge fan of the headline. You know, if you read the article and then watch the little video. The only other thing I would say about that is I have been in touch with more AB distributors, and just like we suspected, this is more of an issue in rural areas in the South and the heartland. But the distributors that I talk to that are in that situation, they're different pockets of their individual territories where it's a lot worse than others. So it's really neighborhood by neighborhood. And, you know, one distributor was like, you know, there's a certain set of bars that won't even accept our product. And there's a certain amount of C-stores where we didn't sell a case of beer this weekend, you know. In the rest of the market, it was the same. And so, you know, we can't look at year over year because of the Easter timing. Easter was a week earlier last year. You know, we're going to need at least a month worth of data to really do a post-op. What am I trying to say? Not post-op.
Post-mortem.
Thank you. Post-mortem. That's the right word. But what we can look at is beer sales compared to a week ago. What I'm hearing is the number I keep hearing is 8 to 10%. So distributors that are in the South that affected were basically down 8 to 10% from the week before. Now, whether it goes past another 2 weeks or so, we have no idea.
And I think some distributors in the heartland, the Molson Coors distributors, also did us a solid in reminding us that they didn't have any product around this time last year. So They're going to see a big spike in sales regardless because they didn't have anything to sell last year because of the sludge or whatever that was. So we can't really look at that either. So it's going to be a while before I think we can really dissect what's going on.
Yeah. Well, AB has been very quiet about it, which is probably the right move. I can't imagine anything they would say that would add or benefit to the narrative. And, you know, haters going to hate, quitters going to quit. I just wish everybody would quit being so loud. Nobody's picking up today.
Everybody's picking up on it, Harry.
You need to calm down.
I know. People need to calm down. Thank you, Jordan. They need to calm down. They're being too loud. But we'll see. All right. And like I said, I have a plumber here. And so I may have to duck out, but y'all just carry on. I don't know. But
somebody asked me the other day with your affinity for the float life now, if the crime wagon has been officially retired. Because when we first started doing the podcast, it was all about the crime wagon. Is the crime wagon still around?
No, the crime wagon got stolen. Jordan.
That is the definition of irony. Somebody call Alanis Morissette.
I know. Well, first of all, it didn't run. I lost the key to it. It was a 3-wheeled electric bike monstrosity. And I didn't lock it up. It was just kind of next to my garage in the back. You can't see it from the street, but somebody had to go back there and actually take it. And it didn't run. So I don't know how they got it to the front yard. But that was before I had cameras. But it's fine because it didn't work. So nobody had stolen it. It would still be there with weeds growing up over it. So it's probably for the best. That's called automatic recycling. We call that. All right. Well, we have Ty Gilmore has entered the waiting room. Why don't we just wait one more minute so that we can kind of get them both at the same time?
Hey guys, if you guys were to invest in any of the coins, which coin would you invest in?
Doge. Don't even have to think about it. Just Doge all the way. Doge to the moon.
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Jordan probably still has money with FTX. And he doesn't even know he can't get it out.
I should look into that investment, see how it's paying off for me.
That John Ray, he might get you 50 cents on the dollar. That guy knows how to find value under rocks with Enron. All right. Well, I'll go ahead.
Let Ty in?
I'll go ahead and let Ty in. And can we not just be such blatant nerds on here, Jen? Can you and I try? And I'm pointing at you.
I try every day. But here's the thing, Harry. Every time we're on this podcast, you say BeerNet Radio is where all your dreams come true. And my dreams still haven't come true. And I come on BeerNet Radio all the time. So
your dreams are way too big, Jen. You need to rein them in a little bit. Maybe bring it back down. You know? Being intergalactic lord might be a dream too high.
How did you know?
Oh, we have our guests in. from Tilray. Jen, why don't you introduce our guest so we can get
Hello.
started?
Yes. Well, welcome to BeerNet Radio, gentlemen, where all your dreams come true, allegedly. Today on the show, we have Irwin Simon and Ty Gilmore of Tilray Brands. Irwin is chief of Tilray and Ty is chief of Tilray's U.S. beer division. And they're both storied CPG veterans. Irwin founded Hain Celestial, the well-known better-for-you food company that was a forerunner of the very movement that has permeated CPG in the early 90s. And Ty is a beverage vet, having spent decades at juggernauts like Glazier's Beer and Diageo, but also startups like Flying Embers. So welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
We're doing well. How are you?
Oh, all over the place, as per normal, but thank you for asking.
You should, interview us till 4:20, and then you can have a 4:20 beer with us, okay?
Well, yes. Yeah, we do
Listen,
get sweet water here. So
I am waiting for the laws to catch up with me. I'm in Texas, so that I might have to wait a while. But, I was saying, Irwin, that you guys the perception was that you're a weed company that's gotten into the beer business, but really now you're a beer company that has a weed business. And
Well, I think a couple things. We're a cannabis company, and we're the number one cannabis company in Canada in recreational. We are the number one cannabis company in Europe in medical cannabis. And with Ty now aboard, we're the number one craft brewer in Georgia. We are the 10th largest craft brewer in the United States. We got the fastest growing beer in New York today in the craft with Montauk beer. We got some strong brands that are growing, and Ty gave me a number the other day of like 80+% in Green Flash. We have the world's number one whiskey business with Breckenridge Distillery, and so we got a lot going on.
wow.
sounds like it. When you say Breckenridge Distillery, what are you making there? Is it whiskey or?
We're making our bourbon business there, and I'll get you one of those in a second. We also have our vodka business there. So there's Breckenridge Bourbon.
Okay.
Actually,
Nice.
just named the number one, the world's. And there is our vodka.
Okay.
And our gin business is right there. Breckenridge Gin is right there. And there is Breckenridge Gin, which is that. And we have a fine restaurant in Breckenridge, Colorado, that one of the hardest restaurants to get into, and Ty was there with me a few weeks ago, and probably one of the best T-bone or tomahawk steaks I've ever had in my life, right, Ty?
It was great. It was really good. Yeah.
Ty, I'm going to have to get your cell phone number so I can get into that
I
restaurant.
was
when I'm
just going to
correct.
say, you can get us in there though, right?
Yeah.
We need to have a meeting, a
We can
consultation.
get you in there.
I'm sure we can pull some strings. We'd love to have you out.
All right. Sounds
Nice.
good.
Nice, cool.
And
Well,
one thing I just missed is
Happy Flower.
we brought a Happy Flower, and I just saw the Chicago Cubs were the first stadium of Major League Baseball that are going to allow CBD drinks to be sold within their stadium. So it's coming. It's, I did an interview yesterday, whether it was CNBC or, Yahoo Finance or whatever, but it's, infused drinks and legalization with cannabis is coming one day.
yeah, well, I think what Harry was getting at is in the US, is it fair to say that you're first and foremost a bev out company because the legalization has been slower going?
As a company today, because we trade as a public company on the NASDAQ and on the Toronto Stock Exchange, we cannot be involved in any businesses and touch a plant that is a cannabis product. And because of that, so in the US today, between our Breckenridge, between Sweetwater, Montauk, and our wellness business, Manitoba Harvest, that's our CPG company that we're involved with. And each of those, are adjacencies or products and brand names that one day, upon legalization, can be used to sell cannabis products or drinks or foods that are infused with THC.
Yeah. I'm curious too, because you said you guys just reported Q3 and you acquired Hexo, right? But that's for a different conversation. But you mentioned, as you're just saying now, basically that when federal legalization does occur in the States, you will kind of take those brands, including the alcohol brands, and try to extend them, right? Does that include distribution, right? So say where you have Green Flash with Reyes, would Green Flash with, THC, if legal, flow through Reyes? Is that what you guys would prefer, to stay with your existing distributors if it's lawful?
So I'll answer that and I'll then turn it over to Ty. First of all, I think today we have an excellent, base of distributors and group of distributors out there. I think whether it's beer distributors or spirit distributors, they realize one day if THC infused drinks come into play, they want to be playing in that arena because they see it could canalize the whole beer and spirits industry. And I come back and say, whether it's Diageo, Brown-Forman, Bacardi, they're all looking at this industry also and saying, upon legalization,
Right.
we want to be in this industry. And, there was time Constellation got into it. Constellation got involved with this with Canopy, some other Molson Coors got involved with Hexo.
Right.
So ultimately, you're going to see upon legalization, a lot of the, spirits and alcohol businesses get involved with this, industry.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. Well, let me go back a little bit. In earnings, quarterly trends are still great for the BevAlc arm. They've decelerated a little bit from prior quarters. I'm curious, have you guys seen any challenges like expanding some of the brands westward, especially with California being so saturated? Just kind of thoughts on that.
Ty, you want to do that?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Jen. So I think, if you look at Q2, we were up double digits. What you have to understand is that there was an acquisition. That's when we took on Breckenridge. So that's why that, high double digit growth was built into that. So the 5% growth, now we're cycling the acquisition. As far as going west, what I would say is that there's a lot of great craft brands out west and great craft breweries. We knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge. It takes time to build brands, right? You have to get the right people, the right brands, through the right network, and it takes time. What I can say is that we are extremely excited. We have a brewery in Fort Collins, and Alpine and Green Flash are now back in growth through the month of March. And so it's really exciting to see as we're kind of building this out, making the right investments. With Alpine, we just invested in a tap room at Petco Park. So if you go up onto the third level and you're looking over downtown, you'll see this Alpine outpost, basically it's what it is, our tap room. And so we're pretty confident with the right investments and now with the right time that we're going to be able to expand west. I also think, Jen, it's really important as we think about innovation, given that there's great brewers and great brands throughout the whole U.S. As we innovate, we're going to really kind of lean in on consumer trends and launch brands that can scale out nationally, like that just aren't a regional or unique flavor or SKU. And so you're going to see a lot of cool things for us in the coming months on what we're doing.
That's very interesting. One more from me, and then I'll kiss it off to whoever else wants it. Talking about innovation and more scaled plays, does that mean that you guys might look to maybe consolidate wholesalers as well? Let's make it a little more turnkey, as we're seeing with some of the other brewers.
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of great distributor partners out there. Reyes is a great partner, as you kind of mentioned earlier. We had a top to top with them. We're aligned to their growth strategy and their vision. We're excited that they're getting into spirits in some areas. But we also have a lot of other great distributor partners. For me and for Irwin, consolidation is not a strategic plank at this point, right? It's all about really building great partnerships and great alignment, and having those partnerships and alignment that revolve around folks that want to grow with us, right? And so folks that want to be on our growth train, our growth platform, those are great partners to us.
And I think, guys, where we came out today, and I'm big on partnerships and I'm big on growing together, and, what, we've been able to do with Reyes, what we've been able to do with United, just to name a few, what we've been able to do with Boning and Oak here in New York. So that is a big part. And you come back and think about it, upon legalization or upon any change within the industry, you think what Tilray will have. We'll have our spirits business, we'll have our beer business, and then we'll have the opportunity with infused drinks. But at the end of the day, the distribution is key. and getting products to the store. Also then, Ty and his team have about 75, and by then maybe he'll have 100 and, of different salespeople that are on the street building out the brands. And hey, who knows what else we'll own by then too? Because, we're not sitting on our laurels here, and we're an acquisitive company, and we really like the beer business. We see a good future in beer in so many different aspects and so many different types of drinks and stuff like that. So it's having all those pieces in place that ultimately will all come together.
I know I said I would kiss it off, but then you set me up well, Irwin. I know you're obviously a student of CPG, and the rumor was part of the way that you found Montauk was based at your grocery store, right? So when you're looking, you're an acquisitive company, and when you're looking and you're researching, is how much of your own personal exposure to said brand informs what you're buying next versus your market research? How do you find trends that you invest in?
So good questions. Listen, I started a company called the Hain Celestial Group in 1993, and as you said before, built it into a $3.5 billion in the natural organic food industry. Okay. And I always tried to be ahead of my time. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Okay. It's interesting. We are creating oat milk, almond milk, hemp milk before I could spell those things. So, Montauk, I've spent a lot of time in the Hamptons, and I've followed Montauk for years, and, no different than being out in front and acquiring Hexo. So with that, we tried to be ahead on trends. We tried to be ahead on what consumers are buying. I have 4 kids, and I always say this here: if my kids will need it or my dog will need it, then we're not definitely buying it. Okay? So we can go out and hire the BCGs and the top, consulting and do all the research. But the world is changing quickly today, and products are changing, and you come back and look what happened with the vodka seltzers and the White Claws and the Trulies and the infused drinks, and and similar to what we're seeing with infused pre-rolls today, what we're seeing in regards to flower, in regards to the cannabis. So what we tried to do is bring it together and say, there's millennials out there, there's Gen Z, there's different generations, and you come back to, in regards to the older generation today that are, today using pre-rolls or vape to sleep for pain, for anxiety, and different drinks. The other thing is there's a big soda category. Listen, I haven't had a soda in 15 years, but I like to have a lot of different drinks, and whether it's seltzer waters, etc. I'll never forget at Hain, my first time when someone came to me with a water company, I said, who would buy a water company when you can go to a tap and get it free? Well, I was wrong. So we're out there and we do a lot of different research. On the other hand, we're studying what consumers are buying today and where the trends are changing from a standpoint. We're also out there today, whether it's a can that looks like this here, whether it's a can that looks like this, whether you're buying water or you're going to be able to buy beer, in a paperback one day with filed, so that's its packaging, its products, its ingredients, Ty the other day, hey Ty, what was my wife telling you in regards to beer that was infused with what?
Omega 8.
Omega 8 or collagen.
Yeah.
Omega 3 for brain and, brain development and stuff like that. And why you can say, wait, now I'm drinking a beer, it's not that good for me, but if it has collagen or omega 3 and stuff like that, I'm getting some good out of it too. Okay.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Harry.
No, you go ahead, Jordan.
I wanted to jump back just real quick on the westward expansion because y'all recently announced a move into Nevada, and it wasn't just Sweetwater hitting Nevada, it was the Sweetwater craft family of brands, so Green Flash and Alpine as well. Was that the first time y'all had done a rollout like that with all 3 brands entering the state together?
I've been here for now a little over 3.5 months, so I can't speak to what maybe the rollouts were previous. I know when we went west, it was predominantly just Sweetwater. So, but yeah, under my regime, this is the first time we've actually gone into a market and launching our portfolio of brands, right?
Okay.
Sweetwater, Alpine, Green Flash, and, and the relationship that we built there with Breakthrough and really kind of thinking through how we bring this portfolio of brands was really important to me and to them and what we do. So,
Gotcha. All right. Well, then I'll move on to the festivities that Irwin mentioned earlier on the call and the big holiday next week. Obviously, 420 prior to COVID, 420 Festival was a big shindig for Sweetwater. I'm just curious, what is the focus and the emphasis on that festival nowadays for
to be another big shindig, a really big shindig, but it's going to be at our brewery this year versus at Centennial Park. So, it's going to be really cool, Jordan. We're going to have 3 different stages set up here at our brewery. So we're going to have a stage inside our brewery. We're going to have a stage outside our brewery in the parking lot. And then we're going to have another stage right off our tap room. And so we're going to have kind of rotating bands at each stage. And, we expect 3,000, 4,000, maybe 5,000 people, depending on, what we're legally allowed to have per day. And it's going to be, hopefully the weather's going to be like it is today, sunny and 70. And we're going to have a lot of people out here enjoying, our great products and hearing some great bands. And, it's going to be fun. There's a lot of excitement. I know inside this building, we're getting prepped. We're going to be launching some new innovation. We're going to have some really cool interactive areas that's going to make it feel really fun.
So you're not anticipating rain?
We're not, Harry, we're not going to bring up that word.
That was the rudest thing I think I've ever said on this podcast.
I guess the good news, if it rains and you're at like Centennial Park, that's all dirt, right? That rain and dirt creates mud. So we'll have rain and some cement and a lot of AstroTurf. So people can get in their cars and not dirty up the floorboards, I guess. So.
Well,
go ahead, Jordan.
Okay, sorry. My next question is related on weather and 420. And, you think about 420 on the cannabis side, it seems like a Super Bowl sales event almost for the category. And I'm wondering if that is still the case. And also, it just had me thinking, what impacts cannabis sales? You've been, you have several years of cannabis sales up in Canada under your belt now. And have you seen any sort of factors that impact? Because in beer, we talk about weather, we talk about its seasonality. Is that true for cannabis at all?
So, listen, it's a great question. And being the largest, cannabis company within Canada today, and Canada, is the only country in the world today where cannabis is legal from a federal standpoint. It's legal in California, but it's a statewide from a legal standpoint. I think the big thing is this here, and there's just, again, in the US, because it's not legal federally and you can't cross state lines and there's multi-state, outlets, etc. I come back and say there's still, again, is it criminal? Can you carry it? When you go to LA and you go to MedMan and buy product, can you go to the airport and fly to New York with it, whatever? So there's still a lot of confusion out there. But in Canada today, you can go province to province. You can, enjoy cannabis how you want to. I think the big thing is, again, the realization of cannabis today that you're buying legally, the different, quality control that cannabis goes through. And I think there's still restriction on how you advertise and educate consumers on cannabis. And cannabis today can be enjoyed, for a use no different than alcohol from a recreational standpoint. The benefits of cannabis is there's no hangover, you don't wake up the next morning, there's no calories, so there's a lot of benefits from a recreational standpoint. I think the other big thing cannabis today is we're continuously learning the benefits from a medical standpoint, whether for sleep, anxiety, and pain. I just read a whole story in the Wall Street Journal the other day about cannabis in regards to patients with dementia and Alzheimer's and calming them down, etc. So, first and foremost, for the longest time, I had somebody here today that and he owned one of the biggest cannabis companies, 3 years in jail many years ago, for trafficking cannabis. And, that does not happen today. So I think getting over the piece where cannabis, is an illegal substance, how it's classified is something important. but you're continuously seeing the growth of cannabis more and more every year, whether it's in Canada. This morning, Germany came out with new laws in regards to growing cannabis in your home and the use of cannabis and, potentially what that will lead to upon legalization. So I think, and I've said it yesterday on CNBC, I said it on BNN, Bloomberg, cannabis got to get legalized in the US, got to clear up all this misnomer. In New York today, it is so confusing. There's medical cannabis stores out there that can't sell it other if you don't have a medical card. Around the corner, you got, illegal cannabis stores selling cannabis today. So there's a big market for it. Ultimately, there's got to be legalization that comes into place in the US from a federal standpoint, like Canada. And consumers, got to get educated about all the different uses of cannabis. You should be out there selling a lot more cannabis than opioids and some of these other drugs and medicines that are being sold out there that are very harmful.
It seems like I guess there's probably not enough data because, like you said, it's so fragmented. It's kind of legal. It's kind of not. We've got there's so many moving parts that is there a way to know if cannabis is seasonal in any way like beer is? I mean, do people smoke more in the summer because the weather's better?
Listen, during COVID, people were home, they were smoking. I think, there is, we see seasonality. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting going into our fourth quarter, our year end is the end of May. Our fourth quarter is one of our biggest cannabis months as you go into the summer. People are outside and, and enjoying themselves. So there is some seasonality around it, but it's something, that cannabis is, being indulged upon all year round.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to celebrate when you walk the dog at night and you're going to sleep. You might have a little pre-roll with you while you're walking the dog. You don't have a beer with you while you're walking the dog and drinking a beer, okay?
Speak for yourself, Simon. First of all, I take a beer with me, but I also don't pre-roll, okay? I roll my own, bud.
Okay, so that's good. So you're buying flower. But if you look into a lot of people's pocketbooks, edibles are a big part of your sleep and relaxation and stuff like that. So so there's many applications. And I will tell you, there's amazing how many friends of mine call me and say, my mom wants, ultimately a vape because she can't sleep at night, or my pain and anxiety. And I never thought I'd be buying it, for my 80-year-old mom, a vape to help her sleep at night while she's in the closet taking a few puffs and that. So
you're a drug mule for your mother now.
No, I guess
we can't say that. We can't say that.
I educate people about the benefits. Listen, I get so many calls and ask me to recommend them to doctors that can prescribe, cannabis for them and from a medical standpoint. And, whether it's from Parkinson's disease or dementia, Alzheimer's, and I recommend them to different physicians that recommend the right, ultimately potency and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. One last question. We'll wrap this up. But
recommend. I never prescribe. Remember that.
Yes. Only recommend. Not a doctor. Don't play one on TV. Nothing.
Not a doctor.
So you come from a long history of successful CPG marketing, and so you've been there and you've done that. And I'm curious because we in the beer industry have always had this conceit that we're different. Okay, we're different. We're not like P&G. We're not like any other food and beverage. We're not even like Coca-Cola. We're different. Is that true? Is the beer industry is that much different, or is it really just the same principles in marketing for CPG?
Well, I'll tell you what's different today. The consumer has changed, okay? And there's a new consumer out there, 21-year-olds today. You got to market to them differently than you had to when you and I. A beer was a beer. We wanted that cold beer, and the taste was important to us.
Bud Light's learning that this week, I think.
Exactly. And man, can you make certain mistakes out there? But my point is today, the consumer is so different out there. And the other thing is this here, and I'll say it about myself. I was not that smart as a consumer as consumers are today. Like I said, my 4 kids and 3 of my kids are over 21 and they know products today. They know what they're drinking. They were not looking for that 99-cent beer. So that is the big thing today is the education of consumer. Listen, no different than non-alc today, no different than, is it vegan, what's in it? They're also very, concerned in regards to the environment and what's happening with the can and recyclability and stuff like that. So that's the big thing today, is the difference in the consumer, and the consumer knows the product and what's in the product.
Right.
Harry, you said that's the last question, but I have to have the last word, right?
It wouldn't be our podcast if Jen didn't have the last word.
And I agree, Irwin. I think the next wave of innovation is going to be very package oriented. But last question, you guys have been dancing around innovation, but we know you're still acquisitive. So what are you going to buy next? It's a spirits brand, isn't it?
So listen, I think, and I said this again yesterday, doing an acquisition for the sake of acquisition, you don't do, and we're not just deal junkies. I think what I love is no different than acquiring brands or businesses that we really can make a difference, and we can grow them, we can innovate, and we can make money for our shareholders. Okay. And I think that's the important part of it. And if you come back and look at Green Flash, you come back and look at Alpine, Nelson, they were kind of great, but deaded out. You come back and look at where Sweetwater kind of hit the wall. Montauk today, the founders, Vaughn and
Terry and
they took it to the right level, but they couldn't take it to the next level. Okay. And with that, we're able to do that with our infrastructure that's in place today. And the same with Breckenridge. Dr. Brian Nault, who found Breckenridge, took it to a level and has taken it to the next level. And I think that's what's important to us to find that fits within our infrastructure, that fits within our organization. We're entrepreneurial, we're nimble, we're flexible, we make stuff happen. And I think that's what's important within here, that we could find the right fit.
Right.
And there's always some deals out there, as far as valuations go. I mean, you guys have been opportunistic in your acquisitions and some of them, and it's probably a good time to run a slide rule over some of these deals.
Well, I think the big thing is, which we got to come back and look at, and I'll never forget when we bought Celestial Seasonings, the whole thing in the tea business, when you went to a store today and you looked at the tea category and say, what the hell do I buy? You look at the beer category today. What do I buy in the craft beer businesses? And I don't know, Ty, how many craft beers there are out there. There's how many hazies, how many IPAs, how many India Pale Ales they are, from out there. Why Wave Chaser as in Montauk? And I think that's the big thing today is, you got 3 seconds to 10 seconds of a consumer to make sure when they're buying it to get them to buy it. And consumer loyalty is real hard to keep today with TikTok and, social media. And how do you do that? So that's what's important today, is how you get the consumers to try your product. But more important, how do you keep them as loyal consumers? And when you walk into a supermarket to buy it, look at that cabinet. Just do me a favor next time, go to a supermarket and look at the beer category. Okay. We all know Bud Light, we all know Molson's or Coors or stuff like that, but look at the craft beer in there and say, what the hell do I buy?
No, listen,
and the other thing is this here, you look at prices today. Okay. And the differential, am I buying for price? I look at beer today, it's $30 a case, $35. So do I want to spend $15? So am I buying it for price? Am I buying it for taste? Am I buying it because of the, great looking packaging it's in? And there's a lot of decisions that are influence you whether to buy the product or not.
I think there's a point of diminishing returns that we've probably passed as far as how many SKUs we're offering on the shelf, to where the consumer's so confused they end up buying nothing.
Well, and that's what you don't want. And that's why we have to make decisions and do SKU rationalization. That's why I think the old days of just throwing it against the wall and hopefully it's stuck. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah. This isn't a George Foreman grill where you just set it and forget it.
Exactly.
That's the second George Foreman grill reference I've made this week on the podcast. So I'm
Are
on
they
fire.
Sponsoring? They must be sponsoring us.
They should. They should.
Cool.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Real fascinating input, and we wish you guys the best. And well, you got out of all the companies out there, you probably have one of the most things going on at once. You know, you're in
we
so many
try.
different places.
We try, invite us back again anytime. This was exciting. And, you know, we just try to make things happen. That's it.
Cool.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Well, take
Thanks.
care. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.
Cheers.